Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So the next mas'ala, the Shaykh speaks about a pregnant lady and a breastfeeding lady. If they were to fast, then there's three situations. If they were to fast when they have fear that fasting would affect or harm them alone, or them and the child, or the child alone, then here fasting would be makruh. Fasting would be makruh for them, and they should not fast. Sometimes if a lady is, for example, breastfeeding and she were to fast, then the milk may dry out, or the nutrients in the milk may start lacking and slacking. Or if a lady is pregnant and she fasts, she may become weak. It would affect her, it could affect the fetus. In this case, in any of the three situations I mentioned, then in this case fasting is makruh for them and they should not fast. It is not only allowed for them not to fast, it would be better for them not to fast. And in this case, in these three cases, they do qadha of the fasts they missed when they are able to fast. They do qadha of the fast they missed when they are able to fast. Except that there's one more rule, and that is, if a lady did not fast because of fear on the child only, so she didn't fast because of fear on, number one, herself, or number two, fear on the child along with herself, or herself along with the child, not those two. In those two situations, qadha, that's all that needs to be done. In the third situation, where she does not fast out of fear for the child alone, then in this case she does qadha, and the person responsible, financially responsible for the child, which is generally the father, if not the father, then the fiqh of this is in the chapter of nikah, in the chapter of nafaqa, on who's responsible to spend on family members. Then on that person, if it's not the father, it would go to the grandfather or the brother or the uncle, etc. The fiqh is, we'll mention it another time. But that person financially responsible for the child, it is obligatory on that person to feed the poor, for every day the mother did not fast because of that person's child, or the person they are responsible for financially because of that child. How much to feed and who to feed, we're going to mention it in the next mas'ala. And the next mas'ala, the Shaykh speaks of people who are not able to fast. When we say not able to fast, in the beginning of the chapter we spoke of who is fasting obligatory. We said the fourth person is the person capable of fasting, and we mentioned two people who are not capable of fasting. Number one being an elderly person who fasting is difficult for the person. So this person, he is most likely never going to be able to fast. The second person is a person who is ill. He's ill and has a prolonged illness, or a prolonged illness that apparently, you don't need certainty, but apparently seems that he would not get cured. Or a person who is not able to fast because he knows, through one of the two situations we mentioned earlier, that if they were to fast, they'd become ill. So this person who is not able to fast apparently ever again, this person, he does not need to fast. And in place of fasting, he feeds the poor for every day he does not or did not fast. He feeds the poor for every day that he did not fast or does not fast. We're going to touch on that now. But let's say this person was able to fast in the future. He is cured, Allah cured him. Or this elderly person, for example, had energy was able to fast. Then we say to these people, though, if they were to fast, then we say the fast is valid. And it's covered, no need to feed. But the actual point is they shouldn't be fasting. But let's say they were then able to fast in the future. And then we say, if they gave the fidya, they fed the poor already for the fasts, then that covers it and they don't need to do qadha. If they did not feed yet, then they need to do qadha. they need to do qadha. If they did fed for some of the days, those days they didn't feed yet, they need to do qadha. They need to do qadha. Then we say when it comes to qadha and kafara and fasting, we can categorize it into four people. It would four groups. Either a person would have to do qadha and no kafara, or qadha and kafara, or kafara, or neither of the two. Neither of the two. So a person who has to do qadha without kafara is a person who did not fast validly, with a valid reason or without a valid reason in Ramadan. And he did not fast, or he broke his fast without a valid reason or with a valid reason. As long as he did not break the fast with intercourse, if he broke the fast unjustly, where he was not allowed to, he'd be sinful. But he would have to do qadha only. A person who broke the fast or did not fast validly, he would not be sinful, and he does qadha only. He does qadha only. Number two, a person, the second category is he has to do qadha and kafara. Qadha and kafara. Right? Then we say this kafara divides into two. A major kafara and the minor kafara. The minor kafara, we're going to mention it now. That is a person who did not fast. He did not fast. Number one is this lady who did not fast out of fear only on the child. So she has to do qadha and kafara on the person who's financially responsible of the child. It's obligatory on him. If somebody else were to do it on behalf of the child, it would be valid. But obligation is on the person financially responsible according to Sharia for the child. Not somebody who has just taken it on himself, or customs or culture is put it on the person. No, according to Sharia. Then that is one person. The other, that is for the minor kafara. Another person would be a person who had qadha, and after Ramadan he was able to do the qadha, but he did not do the qadha and the next Ramadan came. This person has to do qadha and also feed the amount I'm going to mention for every day that for every fast he did not do qadha of before Ramadan came in, before the next Ramadan came in. Then the major kafara, that's going to come on a mas'ala on its own, is for a person who broke the fast in Ramadan, or he did not, on a day that he was supposed to fast, he did not fast, and he had intercourse on that day. That person has to do the major kafara, which we're going to mention just now. Then the third situation is a person who has to do kafara without fasting. Kafara without fasting, without qadha. That is these two people that we mentioned here. Lastly, where there's no kafara and no fasting, is a person who did not fast for a valid reason, and then he passed away before getting the chance to do the qadha. He passed away before getting the chance, before getting the health, or whatever the situation is. He was a traveler before reaching home to be able to have enough amount of days to cover the qadha that he missed in Ramadan. Then the last situation is, in our mas'ala here, the person who is elderly or sick. If that person were to travel, then the mashhur of the madhab is this person then does not need to give any fidya, because in that case of traveling, the person was already excused to fast. So then they say it falls in totality. Our last masail is connected to this fidya the person has to pay. So let's start with saying, who do you give the fidya to? The fuqaha say that you give this fidya to a person who is a recipient of zakah. That means he must be Muslim, number one. That's the main thing. And the second thing, when we say recipient of zakah, they mean two things. Number one, he is a person who is faqir or miskin. In simple terms, he is a person who does not have enough to keep him going monthly. His monthly expenses is more than what he earns. Either he has less, as in just short, or nothing at all. Anything between the two. As long as he has less than what he needs to suffice for him and those who is religiously obligated to support, then he is deemed faqir or miskin. One of the two, according to what we mentioned in zakah. That person is the person you can give the fidya to, this fidya. Whatever the age is. Then, our last couple of masail, and that is, I said that you have to give fidya per day that you missed. that you didn't fast or couldn't fast, one of the two. Didn't fast as in the next Ramadan came, so you didn't fast for no reason, for no valid reason, and you had to give a kaffarah, or you could not fast. So then how many days did you not fast? You have to give fidya for the days, not the amount of people. Not the amount of people. So the objective is days, not the amount of people. You can feed one, you can feed 100. That's not the point is the poor. The amount of the poor is not the point. The point is the amount of food. The amount of food. This food, the fuqaha say, you give, what do you give? The type of food. They say you give what you give for zakatul fitr. For zakatul fitr you give either from, you can mix them up even as we mentioned in the dars of zakatul fitr, you give from dates or wheat or barley or raisins or cottage cheese. Cottage cheese. But if one of these five, or if none of these five are available, either they're not actually available in your city or country or town, or they're not available in the sense, or they are not applicable in the sense that people don't eat any of these. It's not a staple in the country, in the city, in the community. Then in this case, you can go and give something else that is a staple for the people. A staple for the people, meaning the main food, that's the main thing of their meal, not the sideline things. People add like sauces or meat as a sideline, but what's the main staple? That you give to the people. So it could be rice, it could be maize meal, things like that, etc. That would be what you give in zakatul, in fidya for a person who is in our mas'ala. The amount you give, the fuqaha say is a mud of bur. So of wheat you give a mud. So that is plus minus, there's different amounts. There's different amounts that the fuqaha mention to determine the amount of this amount that you have to give in kgs. Because the amount that comes in ahadith is basically with regards to volume. So you have two options. The fuqaha have tried to determine the amount to give in kgs, in weight. The actual point of measure is volume. So if you had a container that that has the volume of half a sa' that I'm going to mention, or a mud, you could fill that container with one of these five or the other things. You can fill that container, that amount you distribute. If you don't have a container or don't want to, you can give the weight. The volume would be more accurate because the weight would change depending on the certain food that you use, or the type of this type of food. So if you use dates, the dates itself, the types of it would differ. So if you were to take a volume, that would be better. If you had a container like water that's the sa' or a mud, and you were to fill it with dates and then give that amount, that would be better. So how much do you give? They say half a sa'. So the fuqaha differ as to how much is a sa'. Many of them say 2 kgs, 0.04, but others have calculated it more than that, and more as in with precaution, meaning it's much less, it's around 2.04. And others have given more. We've mentioned many details across different ulama of different countries in our full fasting durus. So you can go back there to listen to it. But let's go with 3 kgs. So half of that is a sa', is the half a sa'. That's a sa', half of it is 1.5 kg. So you were to take the food, 1.5, the staple, 1.5 of it, and distribute that to however many people. Except if you were to give wheat, there you can give less. Wheat is where you give half of that half sa'. So 750 grams, you give that. So if you were to take liters, you take 1.5 liters or 750 liters. Fill that with the staple and distribute that. So you take that amount. So if you had to feed for 30 days, and we say 1.5 times, or let's say for 10 days, 1.5 kg, times that by 10, so 15 kg. You have to give 15 kg of the staple. 15 kg of the staple. To how many poor? However many you want. Because the objective is days. You can give this food cooked or uncooked. You can give it cooked or uncooked. The last thing, which is an important mas'ala, is that you have to make people the owner of this food. You have to make them the owner of this food. You cannot cook a meal. Even if you took, let's say 10 days, and you giving rice, so 1.5 times 10 for 10 days. So you got 15 kgs of rice. You cooked a whole pot of rice. You added other things into it, meat, you added other sides to it, eggs or potatoes, whatever it may be. And then you called 100, 200, 10, 5 poor people who are eligible for zakah. You called them and you fed them the food and they ate to the last morsel of rice. We'd say not valid. Not valid. Because you've given them what the fuqaha called ibaha. You've given them permission to eat. What you have to do is you have to make them owners of the food. When you've given permission to eat, they only become owners of the food at a certain point. Some fuqaha say when the food is in the mouth, or others say when it's in the hand or in the plate or already swallowed. That's when they become owners of it. So ibaha, permission to eat, not permissible. You have to make them owners of the food. Some may not want to eat, they might want to save it. Some may be sick, they can't eat much. Some may not be hungry, so they don't eat much. Some may want to share it with others, they may want to sell it. You have to give them the option. By giving them the option, that means you make them the owner of the food. That's what you have to do. So inviting over for a big feast, that will not count. That will not count as kaffarah. So we end there. The next dars, inshallah, will complete the things that break the fast with a few other masail connected to fasting and sunan of fasting, and then some sunan fasts, and then we'd end the chapter with i'tikaf and a few masail of taraweeh. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefits us and benefit us with that which He teaches us. Wa sallallahu sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.